After e4, e5, knight c3, knight c6, white continues with f4. In previous videos we went through pawn takes f4. There's going to be more videos coming about that as well. In this video though, we're going to go through this massive mistake that looks like a completely normal move. Knight to f6. Now here you just take the pawn in e5, and after knight takes back you play d4, and the knight has to move again. It could be c6 or g6. There's no other squares. Well, g4 you can just attack the knight in e5, and these two knights are defending each other, but because there's a pawn attack in one of them, one will clearly be taken. So let's start with knight c6, knight back to c6. Now you attack the knight. The knight can't go to d5, e4, g4, h5 because all these squares are controlled by white pieces. So after knight g8, knight f3. So there's three major moves you're going to be looking at. With the passage of time will be d6, d5, bishop b4 for instance. Let's quickly mention bishop b4. This is bad because black doesn't have a pawn in the center, so white can immediately play d5. And after the knight moves back, queen to d4, attacking the bishop. White is preparing the tremendous f6 move with an idea of going to g7. So after bishop takes knight, in order not to just go back with the bishop and give white a crucial tempo, white takes back with the pawn because the knight was targeting d5. And now after d6, no other move was possible. You can't really play knight f6, you can't really play knight h6. Well, if you play knight h6 to castle, but you could just take it, then pawn takes, and then you got d6. Pawn takes d6 is not possible because you can take back with an attack on the knight. If knight attacks the queen, then you can play queen e3 with an attack on the pawn, and at least the infiltration of the queen position is evaluated plus 5.70, so you can imagine. And again, if pawn takes, then pawn takes back, you may argue that yes, there's an attack on the knight and one on the rook, but knight can play g6, protecting the rook basically, but then you still play queen e3 check. Black cannot place a piece in e7 because of the pawn, so after king f8, you've got this check, and king moves, and now white makes a long castle and is going to enjoy a fantastic game. So in this position we notice that the knight cannot really develop anywhere, so after d6 looks like the most normal move and gives the best chances to black. Still you take, which is a bit surprising because then queen takes back, and yes, you also go to g7, but now you might argue that queen can play f6 and everything is safe for black. But now white plays the crucial move bishop to b5 check, and now two ways to block. Well, the king can't really move because you got queen f8, so if black blocks with the bishop, then bishop takes, king takes, queen g4 check. White gets ready to castle. Next move position is already evaluated like plus 5 or something. If black tries to simplify everything and reduce the initiative of the white player, then you play queen a4 check. And again, white is simply just ready to castle and get all the pieces out. If black blocks it like this, just castle. White is ready to play bishop a3, and then the rook is coming to the game. As soon as you swap this, it should be game over for this poor king. Queen taking here doesn't work simply because you play bishop a3 anyway. You're ready to pin the queen to the king. There's nowhere to go. Whatever the queen does, you've got every single piece developed. If queen e6, then you chase after the queen. Queen cannot go to g6 because of knight e5. Same thing here after queen f6. You can still give a check and take the queen. You work it out. It's just a fantastic position to play. You got a huge advantage. So from the start, knight c3, knight f6, f4, and knight f6. So we're gonna punish this straight away. Takes, take, d4, and knight goes back. e5. Knight is forced to the only square, which is knight g8. In case black plays queen e7, then you might want to watch my other videos about the Vienna, about how to punish this specific setup when they pin the pawn. This is a bad move, so go watch the other Vienna videos in my series. You can see everything if you enter my channel. So now we're going to be focusing on knight g8 only move, so knight f3. And now let's go through d6. Looks like a very normal move. Okay, then bishop b5, pinning the knight. This is a very strong move. Look, we're going to go through two moves, a6 and bishop d7. What happens after bishop d7? Here we have a special move, queen to e2, threatening to take the pawn, and then it's going to be check. Black will have to put a piece, a minor piece, hopefully for him, in e7, unless he wants to give us the free queen, which we will gladly take. And then black will lose material. Queen e7 is not possible because of knight d5. The queen will have to move away. The only square is this one, and then you'll be able to do the same thing and win the game very easily. So after the best move according to the engine, which is pawn takes, now we have a special motive. attack the knight with d5. a6 is not possible because you can take the knight and it comes with another attack on MPs, so white will win material. So now the knight will have to move. Knight to e7, and white plays knight to e5, taking the pawn and virtually pinning this knight, because then the knight will be able to make discover checks in case. Now here we have double attack on the bishop in d7, so black has to do something about it. Defending with the knight is pointless because of knight takes bishop anyway. Now black has to take back, and these pieces look terrible. Both of the knights are pinned. White goes on with bishop f4. Pawn to c6 cannot be played because you can just take it for free. This knight is pinned. So after, let's say black needs to try and develop, let's say g6, because there's nothing else to play anyway. White will go on with development. White continues with long castling, and after bishop to g7, let's close the line with this stunning move. Bishop takes pawn here, attacking the queen from c7, and after the queen takes or doesn't take, whatever, we're going to be playing d6 next move, and we have a crashing advantage. So in this position, when we were threatening to take a bishop here for free, knight f6 didn't work. What happens after bishop takes? Now here we take back with the queen, we exploit this diagonal. Our queen now is like a second bishop, doing the exact same thing the bishop was doing, plus with an attack on b7. And there's also 3 pieces attacking the square c6 and 2 pieces attacking d7. Black is in real trouble. So black cannot block with the queen obviously because of the checkmate, so c6 has to happen, and now we take the pawn. Knight c6 cannot happen because of knight takes, right? And after queen e7 doesn't work here because you can just give a check, then swap the knight, you're up a piece. And pawn takes, you can just take with check, and queen cannot play d7 because you win the rook. So after king e7, knight d5, and you work it out from here. I mean, come on. So in this position, after taking the pawn, what happens if pawn takes? Now queen to c4 is the great move, threatening checkmate in f7, and black has to stop this. How? Queen d5 is not possible because of the knight, so after knight to d5, oh, by the way, knight h6, you can just take it, so it's pointless. So knight to d5 and queen check. Queen cannot block because you got a queen and a knight together, so after king goes to e7, then knight, and you continue from here. So in this position, white has just played queen e2. Let's still go a little bit more from this line. Pawn takes in e5. Okay, you attack the knight. What happens after knight to b8, which is another way to move the knight, not going to e7, blocking everything, and still defending the bishop from this square. Okay, then we do the same thing. We attack the knight with the threat of discover attack. Queen e7 is wrong now because after castling, you're completely winning this. So let's just imagine castling, and now you got an attack on f7. So after knight f6, it seems like black is fine, but then you're just going to pin the knight. The bishop can never take in b5 because you can take with a check, and white is getting ready to play rook 8 to a1, and the position is evaluated around +6 in this case. So in this position, instead of queen e7, what happens after bishop takes? Very similar pattern, queen b5. You don't have much after knight moves. There's no particular discover checks. So now it's check. After knight to d7, bishop to f4. See, all the patterns are coming very familiar. And white is already doing so much better here. 2 moves we're going to go through, and then we're going to close this video. One of them is bishop d6, the other one is knight f6. They all look very normal. Bishop to d6, putting more attack over the knight, is met by knight taking in d7. And bishop cannot take the bishop because of the discover check, knight b6, which comes with an attack on the rook. So after queen takes, now here you can take the pawn in b7, and that gives the crucial advantage. After the rook is done moving away from the queen, white's best move is rook to f1 to defend the bishop, and white is getting ready to castle longside, or take this nice unpoisoned pawn. And let's just go on a few more moves just to see how this goes more or less. Right, knight f6, long castle, and castle. What's the advantage? White has an extra pawn. By taking the pawn in a7, white has a 2 pawns advantage. Position is evaluated almost +3. So let's close this line here. Quickly, one more line we have to go through is knight to f6 instead of bishop to d6 in this position. Take the knight, and after the knight takes back, we're not going to go through queen takes back because we went through the weakness in b7 already. Whereas here, taking in b7 is a bit silly because rook b8 and then rook b2 is not really nice. White continues with d6. The idea is to take the pawn in c7 free. So after bishop takes and pawn takes, white has got great advantage after long castle. It's going to be easy to play on this isolated pawn.